Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Seeking Sister Wives. This is chapter 4, and it's about their relationship and how they met and whatnot. And the first part, and then our point of view. So let's get started. I was raised in a polygamous family in southern Utah. My mother was my father's second wife. They had a truly wonderful marriage. A honeymoon experience that lasted for years and years. Their relationship was sweet, loving, and respectful. They put their family and their happiness in front of any petty grievance that might creep up. I was determined to not marry unless I could find some kind of the same kind of relationship. I grew up knowing that accepting the doctrine of plural marriage was entirely up to me. It was something I considered deeply and carefully. I prayed and contemplated until I received a testimony, which to say, until I knew without question that I was going to live the principle of plural marriage. I got married at 21 to a fellow member of my faith. He was from a well-regulated family in our community. Despite the fact that my then husband's family members were spiritual leaders, our marriage was not solid. We struggled right from the start. I was the first wife, but shortly after my son was born, I knew without a doubt that I wanted to have sister wives. Unfortunately, my marriage didn't last long enough to bring a second wife into our family. I tried my hardest to make the marriage work, both for our own sake and for the sake of the 3 children my ex-husband and I had together. But what started off as unstable disintegrated into something destructive. After 7.5 years of marriage, we separated. A year and a half later, we were divorced. Both my marriage and its clouds were incredibly difficult for me. I suffered a lot of pain and hardship. I had been badly mistreated and misled by my ex-husband. While I knew that he was the source of a lot of my grief, part of me still believed that I was a failure because I hadn't been able to make my relationship work. The aftermath of my marriage left me feeling vulnerable and used, as well as exposed and helpless. I felt betrayed. I needed to regain my confidence and my inner strength to ensure that I would never be mistreated again. It took me a while to realize that the only person I could rely on to protect me was myself. When I discovered this, I invented an alter ego who became my protector. Her name was She-Ra, and she represented my tougher, bolder side. Since no one would come to my rescue, I transformed part of me into my own superhero. She-Ra helped me protect the softer, more sensitive parts of my physique. She built a wall around them so they wouldn't be battered or bruised. I knew that it would be going against my nature to throw away the kindness and caring that are important parts of my character. So instead, I developed this mechanism to shield them. She-Ra helped me put up a fortress around my vulnerabilities, develop a hard, impenetrable side so that I wouldn't fall for anyone's tricks again. She-Ra was instrumental in helping me cope with the emotional turmoil caused by my marriage. She was there to ensure then that I would never be hurt again. Any man who approached me was going to have to prove to himself in every way possible, and he would have to go through She-Ra. Since both my marriage and my divorce were so difficult, I decided I would take a break from relationships. I didn't need the complications of dating in my life. I knew that since I was a mother of three, my dates would be more like job interviews than romantic encounters. After all, any man who might court me needed to be up to the task of helping me raise my children. And while I wasn't outwardly considering marriage, I was pretty certain that if it happened, I would join a family as a plural wife. And when I married again, I wouldn't care the least bit what my husband looked like. None of the superficial stuff mattered to me anymore. My husband could be old or young, fat or skinny. I didn't care as long as he was a good man and a good husband. I wanted someone whose sole priority was taking care of his family. I knew that anyone who was interested in this job would have to demonstrate himself thoroughly and competently as caring and selfish and strong. I wasn't taking any chances, but before I ever contemplated marriage or courtship, I was determined to take time out for myself, repair my wounds, and look after my children. After my divorce was finalized and I was functioning as a single mom, I went to visit my cousin Reba in Lehi, Utah, which is 30 miles outside of Salt Lake. I hadn't been there in a while, and I was looking forward to a change of community. On Sunday, Reba and I went to church. While we were seated in the service, a man sitting in front of me with shaggy blonde hair caught my eye. The first thing I noticed about him was his eyes, which were rigged with laugh lines. I always loved seeing laugh lines because they tell me that someone is happy. I watched him talk with other members of the congregation. There was something peaceful and comforting about the way he conducted himself. He was sitting and laughing at ease with himself and others. All of a sudden, he looked up and our eyes met. I'm not exaggerating when I say I felt as though I'd been shot through with a bolt of lightning. When this happened, I was stunned. I was embarrassed too and looked down at my feet. Immediately, I was furious. I had any sort of response to this stranger. I was determined that no one should break through my hard exterior and play with my emotions. So before She-Ra could scold me, I quickly repaired the crack that had appeared in my armor. Sometime during the service, I had to walk past this man on my way to the bathroom. He was sitting with a group of women. In my bitterness at my own emotional vulnerability, I thought, he's probably an idiot. I dismissed the whole encounter entirely. A month later, I visited Reba again. On the afternoon